Hi, my name is Sylvie. I'm a certified health coach and yoga instructor. I help you achieve flexibility of the body, the mindset, and the metabolism using stretching, mindfulness, and fasting. And today's video is also about coffee and intermittent fasting. Last week we talked about the bulletproof coffee. What if you love your coffee, but you don't love the bulletproof coffee? Well, if that's you, I'm gonna help you pick the best coffee creamer for intermittent fasting. I'm gonna give you 6 practical tips to help you pick the best coffee creamer for intermittent fasting, and then I'm gonna give you some of my own personal favorite options that I like to use in my coffee. Let's start with my 6 tips to choose the best coffee creamer for intermittent fasting. Number 1, you want to limit the number of carbs. That is probably the most important thing you can do when you pick your coffee creamer for intermittent fasting. Why? Well, because the way intermittent fasting works is it helps you become metabolically flexible. That's why I love to use the expression metabolic flexibility, and it's one of my coaching techniques. It teaches your body to switch from using glucose for energy to using ketones for energy. Similarly to when you go on the keto diet, because you are severely restricting your carb intake, your body runs out of glycogen, which is your stored glucose. Well, when you're fasting, your body starts running out of glycogen, not because you're severely restricting your carb intake, but simply because you're not eating. So you're not eating any carbs, you're not eating anything, and then your body has to start using your fat cells to produce ketones, and then it starts using ketones for energy. And it really starts decreasing your cravings, your appetite, and you learn to be more in tune with your hunger cues. Now that you know that, well, it seems fairly obvious that limiting the number of carbs in your coffee is essential. If you are practicing intermittent fasting and you want your body to run out of glucose, well, you can't really provide glucose to your body in the form of carbs through your coffee creamer, right? So make sure that whatever coffee creamer you're using for your intermittent fasting does not contain any added sugar. Number 2, pick something simple. So really, I recommend using a coffee creamer that doesn't contain very many ingredients. The simpler, the better. I mean, if you could just put heavy cream in your coffee or coconut milk in your coffee and nothing else, that's best. But obviously, I understand that some people really enjoy the comfort and the flavors that they receive from other things in their coffee creamer, like vanilla, for example, or pumpkin spice, or whatever it is that you enjoy in your coffee creamer. So I know that sometimes you may be looking for other flavors in your coffee creamer, and that's okay. But just try to limit how many ingredients your coffee creamer contains. And I'll talk about a few other options, obviously, as I mentioned, also at the end of this video, and we'll discuss more specifically how you can add flavors to your coffee in a very simple way. Number 3, go organic. Well, yes, organic is always best. There's been multiple studies that have shown that once people go organic, you can actually detect the difference in the number of pesticides and chemicals that is found in the bloodstream. So really, always try to go organic whenever possible. And I know sometimes the cost may be prohibitive, and sometimes you have to pick and choose which products you're going to purchase organic and which ones you're gonna purchase conventional. But whenever possible, just pick organic. Number 4, look for non-GMO ingredients. The non-GMO label has become a bit of a marketing scheme. A lot of non-GMO products these days are never GMO. So like they get the label, but they don't really need to because they're always non-GMOs. Despite that, it is a good idea to look for non-GMO because some crops tend to be GMO. And the problem with GMO foods is that the long-term health consequences of consuming them is not well known. Sometimes they're not well recognized by your body and they may cause health issues. On top of that, GMO crops have caused an increase in the use of pesticides and herbicides. And so it's a good idea to support farmers who don't use those. And coffee creamers might contain some GMO ingredients. For example, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, and sugar beets to make granulated sugar. These are probably the most common creamer ingredients that you may find that could be GMO. Number 5, avoid artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners obviously add sweetness to your coffee creamer. And what the issue is with artificial sweeteners is that they have a chemical structure that's similar enough to sugar that your body will recognize the taste as sweet, but it's different enough that your body can't break it down. And there's some studies that show some long-term health effects. The 2 most common artificial sweeteners that you may find in your coffee creamers are sucralose and aspartame. Number 6, try adding flavors. Well, I mentioned that one already quickly, that one of the main purposes of using coffee creamers in the first place is often just to get that extra flavor into your coffee, but you may be able to just add those flavors in addition to just a regular cream in your coffee. Try adding flavors like vanilla or cinnamon or even salt into your coffee, and you might be surprised by the results. Now, before I end this video, let's go over some of my favorite ingredients that I like to use and add to my coffee. And we're gonna start with cream. I mean, cream is the simplest thing that you can possibly add to your coffee, but that does really make for a smoother flavor. And I recommend you try heavy cream. I mean, the heavy cream, which is 35% fat, is not the cream that most people will add to their coffee. Most people will go for half and half, or maybe table cream, which is what I have here. But the advantage of heavy cream is that you don't have to use as much, and you just increase the fat content rather than the carb number in your coffee. Now, I know that many people limit or avoid dairy products, and I am one of those people. I don't always do great with dairy products, so sometimes I favor non-dairy options, and so you can try that too. If you don't do well with dairy, I have lots of non-dairy options that I'll be talking about. Or maybe you can go back and forth and experiment and see if you can do dairy or if you find that it's affecting you. But these days you can find so many non-dairy options. For example, here I found this non-dairy whipping cream, and I mean, the ingredients are not great. For example, it does contain sunflower oil, but I'm not super worried about it. And depending on your health situation, you may have to be super strict about these sort of additives. Personally, my health has reached a point that having certain additives like those in small amounts doesn't affect me at all. Again, it's a matter of experimenting, taking your time, and seeing how your body responds. Another great option is using canned coconut milk or coconut cream. Again, in canned coconut milk, you may find that there are some additives. You have to watch out for those, but most organic brands, the only thing they'll have is guar gum. And if you are doing something like the autoimmune protocol, for example, you'll have to avoid guar gum. Otherwise, it shouldn't really matter. Guar gum is simply a thickening agent made from legumes. I also love adding fats in my coffee. As you've seen from my last week's video, I like to use grass-fed butter, coconut oil. Ghee is awesome because it also contains butyrate, which feed your good gut bacteria, so that improves your gut health. Adding fats to your coffee when you're intermittent fasting, as I mentioned last week, is fine for most people. It won't impact your blood sugar, it won't impact your ketone level. It'll make you feel fuller longer, and metabolically you'll notice that you enjoy all the same benefits that you would gain from just fasting on black coffee. Now, as far as sweetness and flavor goes, stevia is a good option to sweeten your coffee. It takes a little bit of getting used to. Obviously, it has a different flavor than just regular sugar, but once you get used to it, it's great. I do enjoy putting stevia in my coffee. You may also want to try monk fruit. I find that monk fruit has a flavor that's slightly closer to sugar than stevia, so you may want to try that. And for flavors, we mentioned already cinnamon and vanilla, also cocoa powder to give you that mocha flavor. You can try those different options. You could even put some pumpkin spice mix in your coffee if you feel like you want a pumpkin spice coffee. So have fun with this and play around with the flavors in your coffee and see what options you like best. But ultimately, when you pick the best coffee creamer for intermittent fasting, the number one thing to look out for is the number of carbs. Avoid carbs, favor fats, and then select ingredients that are as natural as possible. And enjoy. There's a time in the health world where avoiding coffee was one of the first recommendations that health experts would give you. Certainly times have changed since then. Now coffee is in again. That doesn't mean you should drink a whole pot each day. So pay attention also to how your body is reacting to coffee itself. Maybe if you find that you're reacting and you don't do well with coffee, try decaf coffee or just use those ingredients in a matcha tea, for example. And something else to consider is that as you get older, you may become more sensitive to caffeine and you may have to watch out a little bit more. You may have to make sure that you don't drink too much coffee as you age. That's something I noticed. I used to be able to drink coffee in the afternoon, in the evening, no problem. Now, if I have 2 cups in the morning, that's too many. And I find that it really does affect my sleep. So I have to stick to my 1 cup in the morning and that's it. If you are having sleep issues, certainly decreasing or avoiding your coffee altogether may be something to consider. But otherwise, yeah, just play around with the flavors and enjoy that cup of mojo each morning.